Hello everyone, welcome to Dine with Dignity with your host Reagan Schmidt. On today's episode, I will provide an overview of the typical debates and recurring themes revolving around physician-assisted suicide. I will cite credible sources and present you with my opinions on the issue. Let's begin. I want to start off by asking a question. Should physician-assisted suicide be available for terminally ill and suffering patients? I want you all to answer this question now, and once you're done listening to this episode, I will ask the question again and see if your opinion's changed. Now, what is physician-assisted suicide? Physician-assisted suicide, or PAS, involves a medical professional providing a terminally ill patient with the ability to end their own life on their own terms, generally through prescribed medication. While this practice can be incredibly beneficial for patients who wish to end their suffering, it also raises significant ethical, moral, and legal concerns within the medical community and general public, as it does not follow the traditional roles of doctors whose intent it is to save the lives of patients, which makes sense. However, the public and medical professionals who support PAS argue for the rights of patients and their authority to plan the death that they wish for themselves. There are certain trends, such as the Right to Die movement and those advocating for patients to have death with dignity, that pop up constantly when promoting PAS. I researched the complex arguments about euthanasia, and I came upon a source by John Cogan written in 2013. In his source, Cogan draws on Jackson and Keown's book, Debating Euthanasia, to cover the disputes about assisted suicide. Jackson's chapter, entitled In Favor of the Legalization of Assisted Dying, addresses her concerns with assisted suicide relating to patients, as she makes arguments for those whose medical condition is such that if life is continued, it will potentially lead to a loss of self, and acknowledges that suffering can be controlled if individuals are empowered to choose how they wish to die. Along with this, the public has been greater educated on how assisted suicide can ultimately benefit a patient who is suffering. In 2013, the support for PAS increased from 38% compared to 27% in 1990. People be knowledgeable of the lives of the terminally ill patients, like if you've had a family member or you know someone who is terminally ill, or just reading about it, has increased support for PAS, as these patients suffer greatly. The self-determination and pain of the terminally ill justifies their decision to die with dignity, if they are granted the right. Upon researching, I found another support source from Burrill and McGruer in 2013, which is a more recent source, and it covers the Right to Die movement. The Right to Die movement advocates for the legalization of physician-assisted suicide as a composed option for patients sustaining unbearable suffering. Most Right to Die activists support assisted suicide for disabled, sick, and old people who are suffering. Burrill and McGruer says that over the past few decades, the general public has endorsed the idea that people who are disabled, sick, ill, and or old should have the right to determine the time and manner of their death and have support through dying with dignity. The Right to Die movement seeks to empower suffering patients with the capability to choose a dignified and merciful end to their life when no other relief is possible. Now, to focus on opposing views of assisted suicide. Critics argue that physicians will perform assisted suicides for no good discernible reason and or end the lives of patients earlier than necessary due to their increased access to assisted suicide materials. These concerns about PAS draw back on the fact that people believe it is morally and ethically wrong to legalize this practice. However, studies from the Oregon Health Authority have revealed that patients who choose to go through PAS often do so to maintain their dignity and die without pain, rather than the common belief that they have been coerced or feel fearful of their physician. Also, data shows no evidence of widespread abuse or decline in the quality of care that patients receive in Oregon, where PAS is legal. PAS has also been legalized in some states such as California, Colorado, Hawaii, Maine, Montana, New Jersey, New Mexico, Vermont, and Washington over the past few years, and is also legal in several countries and jurisdictions around the world, including Canada, Netherlands, Belgium, Spain, Switzerland, New Zealand, etc. To be eligible, a patient must typically be 18 years or older, have a terminal illness with less than 6 months to live, be mentally competent, and be able to make their own healthcare decisions, and make multiple requests for medication, both orally and in writing. Although more unethical objections can be made against PAS, assisted suicide can be a safe, compassionate, and dignified way for terminally ill patients to end their lives. Physician-assisted suicide should be allowed in medical practice for patients who are terminally ill or suffering and wish to die on their own terms. I thoroughly believe that it should be legalized in all 50 states in the United States, as it grants individuals the right to die on their own terms. We have reached the end of our podcast. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I must ask you again, should physician-assisted suicide be available for terminally ill and suffering patients?